Well, as we approach the final days of this 45th general election campaign, British Columbia is proving to be the real battleground for the political parties. According to the polls, Liberals are dominating in Atlantic Canada, Quebec, and Ontario, Conservatives dominating in Saskatchewan and Alberta. But in BC, it is a toss-up. And to tell us about where things stand right now, we're joined by Johal, former journalist turned provincial cabinet minister, now hosts the Johal Show on CKNW. Jazz, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, before Justin Trudeau resigned, Conservatives were essentially projected to dominate all of British Columbia. Then comes Mark Carney on the scene. Why do you think Conservatives have not been able to get that commanding lead back in the course of this campaign?
Well, I think it comes down to the dueling ballot question, one of being, of course, Trump and tariffs, the other one being is it time for a change. Certainly here in British Columbia, there's very much a pronounced rural-urban divide. 3 million of us live here in Metro Vancouver. That's 55% of the province's population. You add in southern Vancouver Island, like communities like Victoria, that comes up to 60% of us live in this one little corner of the province. And this is where elections are won or lost, particularly in the suburbs of Metro Vancouver. And that has been the challenge for the Conservatives, is that message getting across in urban British Columbia, in suburban British Columbia, where the conversation is in and around Trump and tariffs. And that has been a challenge for Mr. Poilievre. There is no doubt the Conservatives will do well in the interior and the north, and in fact will take seats from the NDP in northern Vancouver Island, once again reminding us of the 1990s where the Reform took seats from the NDP. So you're going to see some of that. I can see the Conservatives taking some votes away from the NDP. I think they have a chance to win certain seats here in the suburbs like Richmond, but potentially a couple seats there. But it is a dogfight in big major urban centers like Surrey and further as you go to the valley. That is where the ground is, where they have to make up room, and it's going to be a tough challenge right now. People are concerned about the economy. They're concerned about Trump. We have a massive forest industry here, and with tariffs potentially coming, people are focused on that. Yes, there are people who say, look, time for a change, but the broader issue of Trump looms large here.
Okay, looms large, although I think it's fair to point out this is boiled down to a two-party race, even in British Columbia. And so we're looking at a number of potential casualties, one of whom could be the NDP leader. Talk to us about Jagmeet Singh and what he faces on the ground in his riding.
Well, the challenge there, it's an urban riding that he represents here in the suburbs, but the challenge is the same. What you're seeing is that NDP vote coalesce around the Liberals. The NDP, if they're sitting at 7, 8, 9% in the polls, they're not going to do well. If they hit 17, 18, 19%, that's when Conservatives have a chance to form government or even a minority government. But where the vote is today is one of the defining moments of this election so far, as the NDP voter has decided that Mr. Poilievre concerns them dramatically. They believe him as similar to what Donald Trump and his policies are, maybe a mini Trump, who knows. But at the end of the day, it has scared that NDP voter enough that they're looking at the Liberals. And that is really the tale of British Columbia at this particular point. That, and number two, that women overwhelmingly are supporting the Liberals. But for the case of the NDP and Mr. Singh and his specific riding, it is the collapse of the NDP vote. It's not just there. There's going to be a couple of other MPs, long-standing MPs that are well-liked in their ridings, Peter Julian, Don Davies. They too have a very difficult fight ahead of them. I'm not saying they can't win, but very, very difficult for them at this particular point. It is a challenge. It's a tough fight. And it just comes down to that NDP voter moving over to the Liberals because they're concerned about Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives winning. And so far, Mr. Singh has not been able to craft a message that is bringing that vote home.
Mm-hmm. And what about Elizabeth May? You mentioned the NDP, but here you have the Green Party co-leader running once again in Saanich Gulf Islands. How are things looking for her?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting riding. That's a four-way race between the Greens, the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Liberals. That's a toss-up. That's a real difficult one to predict. But once again, it speaks to the voter and where they are. I mean, I think that broad existential challenge that Mr. Trump and the American administration is forcing upon our broader conversation here in Canada is impacting ridings like that. So I couldn't predict right now who's going to win in that riding. It is a four-way race. But once again, that Green voter may be looking at the Liberals. They may actually be looking at the Conservatives. I don't know because it's a very interesting Green vote. But at this particular point, the broader question of what is the ballot question, I think, is driving so many of these ridings that traditionally may have gone Green, would have remained NDP. And in the case of Victoria, which generally are NDP, are now potentially going Liberal to the point where our Premier, who's an NDP Premier, has said he supports the incumbents, but he is obviously generally believed to support the federal Liberals in regards to choosing between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. So if it's an incumbent, certainly Mr. Eby will throw his support behind them. But if it's not, he's not too worried about that. He's more worried about whether Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister. So lots of factors at the end of the day. There's that rural-urban split, and then of course there's that riding-to-riding debate that is occurring, and it'll impact each riding very differently here. So on election night, certainly, I know Southern Ontario plays a big role, but British Columbia certainly is going to be the place to watch as well, because that is the place which may lead to the Liberals actually winning a majority government.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I only have a minute left here, Jazz, but I need to ask about your former cabinet colleague, Mike de Jong. He's running as an independent. He was not accepted by the Conservative Party to be a candidate for them. How are things looking in his race in Abbotsford, South Langley?
That's a tough one to predict. I mean, you would think the Conservative machinery would put the Conservatives over the top. But Mr. de Jong has been a 30-year veteran, long-time cabinet minister here in British Columbia, well-known name, and received the endorsement of a well-known mayor here in Abbotsford, and a cabinet minister, a Conservative MP, Ed Fast, and his entire constituency association has been supportive of Mr. de Jong as well. So that riding, another one, it's a toss-up. One would assume the Conservatives would win that, but with Mr. de Jong's name, the profile that he has, and the fact that this story has gained so much attention, that's another riding to watch. It's going to be a close one.
Johal, always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you.